It was your idea, so we gotta try it.
Yeah, but we try it, but when we have like
We'll run through it first.
It's on a separate channel. We'll edit it out. I don't know.
We don't need to have you want to be videoed. Is that what you mean?
Well, I was thinking you'd have to do some sort of video.
All right, back for another episode of Crosstalk. I'm Tim.
I'm Chris.
And today we're talking about common themes that you see in films that are not directly tied to genres.
That's right.
So it's a bit of a mouthful.
It is.
I couldn't come up with a shorter descriptor.
No, you really couldn't, because then you lose something in the translation.
So, Chris, today I think we should kind of explain to our audience what we mean by transcending themes.
So essentially, what we're getting at here is, for an example, loss of innocence or dealing with loss and things like that. How you can have widely different types of films that still address that underlying point, and it's not tied to a certain kind of film.
Yeah.
You can have animated films, you can have horror, you can have sci-fi, you can have drama.
Yeah.
That's the overall point I think we want to drive.
Yeah, and you can see other common themes like good versus evil or triumphing over adversity.
Yeah.
You know, there are some themes that, as you said, transcend genre, and they're very specifically tied to, morality or ethics or just, like the hero's journey or the growing up or what have you. Those kinds of things. Coming of age. Thank you, sir. Yeah. Those kinds of things transcend genre. They don't necessarily have to be tied to one.
That's right.
Instance.
Yeah.
So why don't we run through some specific examples of films that sort of tie into those themes that we've just touched on and kind of give a better indicator of what that looks like.
Sure.
So let's start with age, or rather the loss of innocence.
Yeah. Right. So loss of innocence, we have a number of different examples. For example, Up, and it deals with obviously the main character growing up and realizing that, their emotions are changing and they're becoming a different person, and it's exemplified by the death of the imaginary friend, for example.
Oh, you're talking about Inside Out, not Up. I was like, you lost me for a second, but you're right.
Yeah, Inside Out. That's what I meant. Yeah. So Inside Out. That's what I meant to say. Sorry. So Inside Out, and Up as well, because that's more of a lost one. But this kid is the central character and stuff is a central character, and but Inside Out is the better example. But anyway, it's exemplified by the death of the imaginary friend and everything like that. You've got horror. You got Let the Right One In. Kid vampire with the child in school. As they go through that kind of thing. You've got The Ides of March, which is a really good political film. And Ryan Gosling, over the course of the film, his character changes, and he realizes to be successful in politics, you have to play dirty, essentially. He starts out all bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, and he ends up in that. Yeah. He ends up in that predicament, right?
Absolutely. And then there's a couple other examples, like if you're talking about like a war film, for instance, although there's tons of examples of this in war films, but if you look at Platoon, those guys go in, and I think it's in North Korea or Vietnam. They're in Vietnam, and they're experiencing all the things that soldiers experience in Vietnam, and the brutalities of war and violence, and especially things like rape and murder and things like that, and it's a very poignant story, right?
Yeah.
So,
and then you've got something much lighter, Princess Bride, fantasy comedy and stuff like that. You have, while love does triumph in the end, you have that period in between where Buttercup, I'll never love again, so I'm just going to go through life. I'm just gonna marry this prince, and I'm just gonna float through because. There's nothing else that can compare to that. So, that innocent time where it was just us and our love, it's gone. So there's and of course, like Fred Savage is sort of, he begins, it's like, oh, are they kissing again? It gets to the end, and it's like, oh, I don't mind them kissing now. So it's like sort of a grown up.
Yeah. So that coming of age concept.
Yeah.
and how do you deal with that, and
Yeah.
becoming, going from basically being a child to being an adult. So,
Yeah.
there's lots of examples of that.
Yeah, exactly.
Another one that you talked about was coping with loss.
Yes.
And you mentioned Up.
Up is a better example.
But you meant it for this one.
For this one, absolutely.
Yeah.
Not so much the fact that his wife dies, but for me, on a very personal note,
Mm-hmm.
for my two children, I went through fertility treatments for my wife, and I went through fertility treatments for both our children to have both our children.
Mm-hmm.
They can't have kids in that. And the scene where they're told by the doctor they can't have kids,
Mm-hmm.
I legit cried at that because that touched me personally. I had a personal experience with it.
Yeah.
So the way that they deal with that,
Yeah.
I find that they deal with it in a very interesting way.
Yeah.
They this is they want to go on that trip and they keep saving for it. Things get in the way and things like that. But I think I feel it's a very interesting way that they dealt with that personal loss.
Absolutely.
Right there. You have a whole bunch of different. You have some more examples here. You got horror movies. You got Antichrist. You've got which is a very strange film. Their child dies and they go away to this retreat, and there's a lot of self-mutilation involved in it.
Mm-hmm.
It's very strange. You have a drama, Sophie's Choice.
Mm-hmm.
She has to make Sophie's Choice, obviously, but she has to make the unthinkable choice: which of her children gets to live.
Yeah.
Like it's an insane choice. So how she kind of deals with that. And a film that I watched recently, and I highly recommend it. It's a Swedish film called A Man Called Ove.
Okay.
And it deals with him as he starts out as this old curmudgeonly, sort of grumpy.
Mm-hmm.
He's really pushy. He's basically an asshole.
Yeah.
So he doesn't get along with people, but and you hate the character at the beginning, but as they go through the film, they really take you into his line of thinking, and it just shows you that some people aren't necessarily just mean.
Mm-hmm.
They're not necessarily that way, like very hard to get along with because they're bad people.
Yeah.
This is some of their experiences. His dad died when he was young. His wife, him and his wife, they want to have a family, but there was an accident and she lost the baby, and she ended up paralyzed, like from the waist down as a result. Like, I don't know, spoilery, but I mean, you'll see it. I mean, you'll see the beats as you go through, and it did it in a very interesting way. And he continued to visit her grave throughout the film because she had recently passed away, to tell her about, okay, I got to deal with it. 'Cause going through, like he feels like he doesn't have anything to live for anymore, and it turns out that he makes relationships, and he does, but he keeps going to her gravesite and visit. Okay, like I got to deal with this one annoying person, and then I'm coming to join you, right? So it's very heartwarming, and it's not a contrived Hollywood way to come to the conclusion that your relationship with other people is something worth living for. So
yeah,
it's just an excellent movie.
And that reminded me of another example. Have you seen Saint Vincent?
No, I haven't.
Similar concept. He's this curmudgeon.
Yeah.
It's Bill Murray and Melissa McCarthy.
Yeah.
And the whole movie, he's basically seen as like this big jerk, and he's always trying to like squeeze something out of society, and he like hangs out with a lady of the night. And it's funny, there's a scene where the kid, Melissa McCarthy's kid, is like, oh, she's a lady of the night.
Yeah.
And so their similar thing is like you see him as sort of this jerk, and then you later realize that he was a war veteran, and that his wife died, and he's taking care of his sister,
right?
And all these things are happening that are effectively making him, not sour necessarily, but he's had a lot of difficulties in life. So how he copes with those challenges is,
Yeah, so that's a comedy example. So like comedy, drama,
exactly.
Horror.
Yes.
Right? It
transcends the genre.
Yeah, absolutely it
Yeah.
does. So
you were gonna say Death at a Funeral, I think, was another comedy example.
Death at a Funeral is a good example too. So like it's another comedy, but it's quite all these different secrets come out and everything, and it's just it's a comedy of errors, right? And I really the original British version I think is better than the Americanized.
Isn't Peter Dinklage in both of them too? I think he is.
I think so. Which is it's which is pretty hilarious.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it just goes to show you, right, that
Mm-hmm.
it can go through the different examples of different types of genres, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, it's tough to deal with loss, and there are different ways to address it in film and in television. And
Yeah.
you know, I've been watching, just as an aside, I've been watching Scrubs.
Oh yeah.
Recently.
Excellent show.
It's an excellent show. And you know, I was thinking about it, you know, there's lots of hospital dramas out there, like there's Grey's Anatomy, and you know, there was ER, and you know, we could go down the list, but Scrubs is a comedy that deals with loss and life and all that stuff in the same way those other shows do, but from the lens of comedy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
So it's a very, again, like,
it doesn't have to be one way.
it doesn't always have to be a drama.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, okay, so the next one you were going to talk about, or that we were going to talk about, was triumph through adversity.
Yeah.
So there's lots.
There's lots of example. Of course, there's one definitive example that always comes to mind.
Yeah.
Rocky, of course.
Yeah.
Of course, even though spoiler, it doesn't win in the end,
Mm-hmm.
but even though it's that journey that comes all the way through. Now you'll find this in a lot of sports movies.
Yeah. There's kids ones like it.
Yeah, there's some kids ones too.
Like Rookie or The Sandlot.
Yeah.
Or
for comedy, even though it's a sports movie, Major League.
yeah.
You got sort of drama, sort of comedy. 50-50 is a really good one.
Yes.
One of my personal favorites that I put on my list because I want to talk about Slumdog Millionaire. I really, really
Yeah.
like that film. It's really entertaining, but that kid gets hit with thing after thing after
Yeah.
thing after the whole movie, and he just comes out like every single time partially because of his attitude, partially because of luck, partially because he's just I'm not gonna let it
Affect me.
I'm not gonna let it hold me down. Like
Yeah.
I am eventually going to get out of this situation, and I'm eventually going to lead the life I want to lead. And at the end of that movie, you're just like you feel that emotion of triumph from him, right?
A couple examples that I had, which were, one was a sports movie and one was not a sports movie, but Varsity Blues.
Oh yeah.
I feel that one's excellent, and it has the late and great Paul Walker in it,
Mhm.
and Life of Pi,
Oh yeah, Life of Pi.
right?
Yeah.
Those are both excellent examples of transversity, and like you said, it doesn't necessarily have to be
Yeah.
one way.
It doesn't have to be one way. Yeah.
Yeah,
So yeah. Yeah.
awesome. Oh, you know another one we should have brought up, and
What's that?
I watched it very recently. Was The Shawshank Redemption.
Oh yeah,
And
that's
that-
a good one too.
That's a really, really, really good one,
Yeah.
because Tim Robbins is not guilty for one,
Yeah.
and he puts up with like some of the most intense things you could ever deal with in prison, like
Yeah.
you know, like being raped, and then being gaslit, and being blackmailed by the warden.
Yeah.
He has a friend murdered
Yeah.
when he's trying to get out.
Yeah, and a lot of other people would just, they would called it quits, right? But he
Yeah.
triumphed through. He escaped.
Yeah.
He literally crawled through a sewer.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To get out, and yeah.
Yeah.
So absolutely. It's another excellent example.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so I think we still have a couple more themes. What was the next one that we could talk about? What?
Good versus evil.
Okay, yeah. Okay, let's talk about good versus evil.
So there's a lot of good examples. You could go down the superhero route with Dark Knight. You
Yep.
could go fantasy Harry Potter.
Yep.
You can go
Alternate example, like Scott
Yeah.
Pilgrim versus the world.
Lord of the Rings. Obviously, that's
Yeah.
pretty good. You could go horror movie route, Halloween.
Mhm.
An animated one, which is a cult classic, Heavy Metal.
Yeah.
And that is, if you think about it, every single one of it, every single one of the scenarios, and as you get to the end, that little the orb basically represents the the representation of evil.
Yeah.
And the other character, which keeps foiling its plans, is the representation of it's literally good and evil. So
Yeah.
again, like an animated film, I mean, it's more of an adult animated film, but still,
Mhm.
I think it's a good example.
I think and I talked about this one because I cannot get enough of this movie, and I need to watch it again right away. But an animated class, I'm calling it a classic already. I don't think it is, but it should be.
Mm-hmm.
Kubo and the Two Strings.
Oh yeah.
That is a great representation of good versus evil, and I don't want to talk about it because I've talked about it, and I think you should just watch it. But,
yeah, no, it's on my list to watch. Along with 150 other.
Yeah, but yeah, there's tons of examples of good versus evil.
Yeah, yeah, it's pretty. Again, you can go, and if you look at comedy, how many comedy has a over the top, on purpose, like wildly unbelievable villain? Look at Dodgeball, for example, right?
Yeah.
Or
Anchorman.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, like the villains in that are over the top on purpose, but it's still a villain that wants to make the main character's life miserable, exactly. Yeah. And they're trying to exactly.
Yeah. Or Happy Gilmore.
Yeah, Happy Gilmore's another one. Yeah. So like, I feel like in a lot of comedies, there's a bad guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he's just a horrible person.
Shooter McGavin.
I piece of shit like you for breakfast. You eat pieces of shit for breakfast. That movie's so endlessly quotable. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, awesome. Okay, so let's talk about the last one.
Great.
Overcoming differences.
Yeah. So again, you got an animated example. You got Zootopia, which we
both love that movie.
We both love that film, and it's really carnivores and herbivores, right?
Herbivores, yeah.
It's very and it's representative of the world we live in right now.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really poignant.
Mm-hmm.
You have Remember the Titans, which is a sports movie, but they're overcoming the tragedy of the accident that killed the I don't know if it's the whole team or if it was many of them, and also no individual can do it. You have to work as a team together,
exactly,
and racism and things like that. And then you have everybody's favorite example, science fiction, Independence Day.
Yeah,
because like the aliens attack. And all the races and everything, like
every culture.
Israelis and Arabs fight side by side, and you're like, what more do you want from getting over differences to fight a common foe than that, right?
You know what is a really good example that I think of, and it's also like coping with loss too. But have you seen The Untouchables, that French foreign film? So it's about this guy who's in a wheelchair, and then he hires this guy who's basically like down on his luck, and he's kind of. I don't know what you call him, but he's I guess you call him.
I've heard of the film, but I've never seen it.
But he's a guy who's like uneducated versus this wealthy man who is in a wheelchair, and he has very little will to live, and
Okay.
But it's a culture clash, and they come together and they learn to appreciate each other and enjoy each other's company, and it's movies like that make you feel good, and like you said, it kind of ties people together and brings ideas together.
Yeah, and I do have one more as well. On that note, Philadelphia, where Tom Hanks he gets fired from the law firm because they find out he has AIDS, and then there's the whole heterosexual homosexual.
Yeah,
and this was in the early '90s, so it was still. I mean, I don't want to say it's widely, but it's far more widely accepted now than what it was in 1991, 1992, whenever the film was made. And I feel like that film was very on the nose for its time, right? It was very relevant. Yeah. And, there's several scenes in there where they have around people that, that's why nobody likes you. It's like the guy, so Denzel Washington's in the store and it's like, hey, you're defending a gay lawyer, and he's like, he sort of hits on him. He's like, see, that's why nobody likes you, and that even the good guy in the film still has the prejudices.
Yeah. But
how he can overcome them and, and help wrong the right, or right the wrong. Sorry, that.
Especially like rise above.
Yeah,
the
rise above his own prejudices.
Yeah.
To still help Tom Hanks' character win the lawsuit as he rightfully should, because he was fired without justification. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So again, drama. You got drama. You got comedy. You got. It's like
you managed to throw horror in there a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit of horror in there. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. So, yeah. There's lots of examples out there, and I feel that we could probably spend a little bit more time with each of these themes.
I think we could too. I think It's almost like we're setting up for another video.
And we can touch upon some other examples too that we didn't talk about today.
Yeah, I think we can elaborate a lot more too.
Yeah.
But I think this is sort of to, I think this is almost to like whet the appetite for a further conversation. Because I think we could do more of a deep dive for like the different, these different themes, and maybe even add a couple, add some examples of film, and go into the reason why we think that they make a good example of each.
Yeah, of each theme.
Yeah, I think so.
Absolutely. So I don't know. What do you think, Chris? We cover this one?
I think we did, even though we sort of glossed over a little bit. But I did get to talk about a couple of really good films that I've seen recently that I think people should see. So, Man Called Ove, really, really watch it.
And I got to squeeze in some examples that we didn't talk about.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So, what do you think about this topic? Do you like the different themes? Do you have maybe some more to add that we could cover in future videos? Please feel free to comment below, like and share the video, or even better, subscribe to the channel.
Until next time, I'm Tim.
And I'm Chris.
And this is Crosstalk.